I will say this. I do love how calming our intro is. Like the music's just like, it's time for the Ethan and Jenna Show. Jenna,
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing well, thank you. Sorry for the late start. So our call screener was unavailable today, so we just got another one. I had to configure the show, and I was doing that right before we started. So I apologize. I hope everyone knows I don't like to be late, or at least I hope they do.
Yeah, same.
How's your before we get into our topic, which is mental health and consent to vent, although I don't think I really worded that title correctly, but essentially the topic is getting consent from someone before you unload your problems on them. And if you're interested in talking about this topic, call the number at the bottom of the screen, 708-554-7836. So Jenna, how was your week?
My week. Oh, I got my second COVID vaccine.
Ooh, so you're fully protected.
In about a week and a half, I will be. 2 weeks or so.
Is that how long it takes to kick in?
Yeah, I've heard between 2 weeks and a month even that it takes for the second part of the vaccination to fully kick in enough to where you can consider yourself vaccinated. I'm not sure of that. That's just what I've heard. So if anybody knows facts and wants to share them in the chat, feel free to share links to the cdc.gov or something.
That's one of the unfortunately frustrating things I've seen lately is like someone recently made a post that said 10 people got sick after getting the COVID vaccine. It was like the headline. And it's like, dude, millions of people have gotten vaccinated. 10 got sick.
Well, and again, that's the thing.
When did they get sick?
It doesn't even guarantee that that you won't get sick.
Right.
That's not what the vaccination is for. The vaccination is to make sure you don't die. So it doesn't like I read on the paper, that they made me read before I did anything, and it says this doesn't guarantee that you won't get the virus.
That I would, not on the Ethan and Jenna show, but overall, I would love to do an episode on the COVID vaccine. So, but if anybody watching knows of any medical professionals that may be interested in doing that, please have them contact me, because I would love to cover that in the most responsible way possible. I did not know this, best name. You could still infect others after getting it?
Yes. You can still infect others. You can still get it. You're not immune. Yeah. So somebody said those are the guidelines, 2 weeks after the last shot. Depending on which shot you get, obviously. I've heard that the Pfizer one, people are getting lucky, I think, with the Pfizer shot. Luckier than the Moderna. Like the Modernas are knocking people out a lot harder. Like they're getting sick rather than the sore arm. Like I have a bruise in my arm and that's it.
Oh, well, that's good.
So I think I got lucky just from what I've heard.
Good. Jenna, did you hear that I am coming to Austin, Texas next month?
I did.
I finally get to meet you in person.
Yay!
I'm so excited. I'm going to meet you. Hopefully Eric Murphy and V, but Holy Kool-Aid for sure. Genetically Modified Skeptic, Hannah Vaughn.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to be awesome. I could finally meet the people I've been working with on YouTube for almost a year now, and have looked up to for several years.
Yay.
Real quick. So when I was at my worst, the ACA shows on Sunday were like all I had to look forward to. Literally, like once Sunday would end, I would be like sad until the following Sunday, because it was the one time where I didn't feel alone, and there were people that shared, my views, which was really refreshing, but also very isolating. So like during that time, more than anything, I just kept saying to myself, like, because my health was bad, like, before I die, I have to find a way to get to the ACA and just thank them. And, when my health got worse, I'm like, oh, this is never going to happen. And it was just, but still, like, from a distance, I loved watching you guys, and all of you helped me. with my deconstruction so much, and getting me from an angry Christian Republican over to more happy-go-lucky liberal atheist.
Hey,
Thank you.
I am more than happy to be any part of that, because this group of people that I joined in with are the same group of people that did the same thing for me. So to hear that I'm doing that for others, that's like the best feeling in the world.
So to kind of go into our topic, I guess my first question, Jenna, is, do I have consent to vent to you right now?
Right now? Sure. Go for it.
So I'm not really going to vent. I'm just going to talk about how over the past couple weeks, but especially the past few days up until yesterday, my mental health was in the toilet. I was just like, okay, this is trigger warning real quick. I'm going to show you my eye, but there's blood in it. So anyone watching, trigger warning. But wait, is it this eye or no? It's this eye. So I don't know if you could see it. I'm trying.
I don't need to see it.
Okay. Anyway, I was like stress puking, man. And even on this side, like I've got blood vessels popped in on the side in my eye because I was so freaking stressed out and anxious. And it's like, dude, I'm so glad I am not as anxious as I was before, because that was really just like, this sucks.
How did you get through it? Just wait.
A friend or someone close to me was very comforting and reassuring, and just like, I pretty much, so if I haven't replied to anyone in direct messages, I apologize. I was this weekend, I'm like, I gotta focus on me. I can't be replying to people. So that's what I've done. I've just unplugged, and one of the people I've spent time with has just been friggin' awesome. And I feel like someone like took a scrubby and cleaned out my brain. Like, I'm just calm again. And it's like, I'm centered and I'm cool, and I really hope it lasts.
Yeah, sometimes it takes just narrowing down your friend circle just for a day or two, just to kind of refresh and recharge. Because when you surround yourself with so many different kinds of people, as much as you may love them, it's exhausting to love people and to care about people all the time. And so when you're constantly around those people that you care about and you're concerned for, and you want to help, and you want to say the right things at the right times to help them with the right things, right? It's exhausting. So it can be very, very relaxing to just pick just one person that you can just relax with, and just let it go for just long enough to let your muscles recharge, and you can get ready to do it again.
And with my anxiety being better, like my ADHD is a bit better too. Like right now, I feel way more focused on the conversation at hand. And one of the other things, like I always invite people to message me and talk to me about their problems. Like I always try to say my DMs are open. But this past few days, like when a friend reached out, and I directly said, I'm like, I can't handle it right now. I'm sorry. And I never want to be rude to people, but that's why getting consent to somebody is so important, because you don't know the mental state they're in, and that confiding in them could push you over the edge or make your mental health worse. And not only that, people should include trigger warnings before they vent about certain things, because your traumas could be that other person's traumas, and you never know when you could trigger them. Like particularly people with PTSD, the last thing you want to do is trigger a post-traumatic stress response, and they're not in a good place as a result. So I would encourage everyone to do your best to always ask permission before.
And for anybody who might be wondering, well, why, what does that mean to not trigger the PTSD, trigger response? What does that mean? It's that when people get triggered, and now granted, disclaimer, neither one of us are psychologists or professionals in any way. We are peers who happen to be very interested in this subject. So we can be wrong about anything that you hear, double check it. But we're just trying to create a forum where we can talk about these things. But basically your blood pressure goes up. Your fight or flight basically turns on and your blood pressure goes up, you start breathing more shorter breaths, your eyes dilate. I mean, it's basically like you go into fight or flight mode. And so when that happens enough times, and that can create chronic problems like blood pressure issues, that you can have a stroke from doing that too many times. So that's one of the reasons that you want to try to avoid triggering people. That's just one of the physical reasons that you want to avoid causing that response in somebody because they don't have control over that. That's something that when somebody is triggered, it takes time and effort to get that, to reverse that response.
Yes.
So just out of respect for people who may have had that response more than you might understand, that's just one of the reasons that you want to try to be sensitive to people that you don't know, to people who might be affected by you.
Right. And also, like, one of the things I'm going to try avoiding painting with too broad a brush here, but one of the things when I was a right-leaning person is these conversations to me at that point were just a bunch of whiny liberals who couldn't deal with their problems. Like, I didn't realize the importance of just recognizing when you have mental health issues. And I even have a family member who now views me as weak or to quote him, a weakling since being more transparent about my mental health. And that's one of my frustrations with people on that side of the spectrum, is they're so quick to judge and call you, like, they just don't want to acknowledge that these problems exist. And it's not weak to say, hey, this bothers me, this upsets me. That's actually takes strength to do that.
And I mean, that's kind of wraps into what I wanted to bring up about this comment right here. Just to kind of bring this not back to the vaccination topic, but to bring it to what that brings me to is the reason that you want to get the vaccine, even though it doesn't prevent you from getting it or necessarily prevent you from dying or from spreading it to other people, is because, I mean, life is a game of chance.
Right.
Everything that you do, that you want to reduce the chances of bad things happening and increase the chances of good things happening. And so when you get a vaccination, you're reducing the chances of bad things happening. That's why you want to get a vaccination. So go ahead.
No, I don't know how much you want to go into this, but that individual is actually on hold right now.
Well, then that's all I wanted to say about the vaccination. I don't want to make this show about vaccines because we are not experts in any way.
Okay, so Ebony Will Clayton, if you're listening, we really appreciate you being willing to call in. But since this is a mental health show, we need to stay focused on mental health. If you are interested in talking about this more, I do have another podcast every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Time. Maybe send me a message on Facebook. Totally welcome to call that show, and we'd be more than happy to talk to you about vaccines.
And so that brings me to what was it that you were talking about that made me bring this up? Because I was going to bring up Chance to kind of respond to what you had said.
Crap.
Yeah, I don't remember what you had said.
I'm sorry. I totally derailed you on that one.
Well, no, I kind of derailed me because we're both ADHD and I should have known better than to go that far down a rabbit hole and expect to come back. So consent to vent. I found that this is actually a thing that has been trying to be normalized, apparently across just kind of blogs, not necessarily across the scientific community. This isn't a scientific term. And that's why we named the show Consent to Vent, because this is just a concept that we're just now becoming aware of. And it seems that other people may have recognized this concept as well and called it emotional consent. Recognizing that, getting consent sexually is one thing. And that's a good thing that we've been promoting, across many different worlds of people, that's a new idea of making sure you get consent is actually a part of the process. But we're also realizing that it's not just a sexual thing. It's an emotional thing too, that when you're going to unload on somebody, when you are going to explain your problems. And coming from an emotional perspective, you're going to be flowery and descriptive with your language. You're going to feel it. You're going to be there and explain everything that you need to get off of your chest because it's important to you. And the person that's listening to you is going to have a very good image of what's going on. And sometimes the way that trauma works, and again, not coming from a mental health professional, just a mental health connoisseur, it can be, I'm not saying it is, but it can be more traumatizing to a person to listen to a traumatic event and describe it in their own head than it is for the person that actually experienced that traumatic event. Because at times we can embellish things in our head. We can get very descriptive. We can make things magnified. And there are times that people can be more affected by it just because you're telling them about it. And so the thing that I wanted to bring up is that I was having a rough week. This was a couple weeks ago. I was having a really, really rough mental health week, and I really needed to unload on somebody. But what I noticed was that everybody that I'd called instead unloaded on me. And this is nothing to speak against anybody. It's just that I realized that all of us had some self-care that we needed to do because none of us could carry our loads on our own. And it seemed like, it's just everybody was overwhelmed. And so the person that I had called and thinking, oh, well, this person's having a bad day. I'm having a bad day. Maybe we can unload on each other and, feel better, make each other feel better. I realized after talking to this person that after listening to them go on and on and on about their problems, I was caring about their problems too. And it was just too much for me. Like it was about to send me into panic attack mode. And so I was like, I got to go. And I had to get off the phone very quickly. Now, one of the things is that this brought me to the realization about the concept of getting emotional consent. We should have discussed before either one of us unloaded either thing, saying, I'm really overwhelmed. Can you handle this right now?
Right.
Can I share this with you? Can I put my burdens on you for just a minute? And that we can kind of come to that agreement rather than me in the middle of her talking and being emotional and not wanting to cut her off and be rude, me getting so overwhelmed and not knowing what to say. I could have prevented her getting worried about me because of the way that I got off to take care of myself because I needed to go. I ended up falling asleep and taking a nap, which was good. But in the meantime, she knows that she was unloading on me, and she knows that I care about her a lot, and I wouldn't normally just interrupt her like that. So she's worried about me. And so that's the other point is whenever you do have to do something to take care of yourself and do this self-care thing that we're going to talk about, that you can do when venting isn't an option, is what was I just talking about?
People venting to you, and they unloaded
the
on you.
Self-care thing.
Consent.
I had like this really good train of thought, and it was just this little loop that I took. Anyway, self-care.
Well, I mean, we do have four callers, by the way.
Wow, that's awesome. But my point, moral of the story, get emotional consent before you unload. If you can't unload and you need to take care of yourself, and there's somebody else that is aware of your situation and you kind of ghost them, be aware that yes, you may be taking care of you, but you may be hurting somebody as well just by ghosting them. You don't have to go into this long explanation of this is everything that's going on, because I realize that's one of those things. If I were to do that, I'm going to immediately fall apart, and I can't do that sometimes. So just saying, I'm okay, I'll talk to you later. Or I'll talk to you later, even if you don't want to lie and say I'm okay when I'm not. But anyway, that's my point of the story. So there's two sides: taking care of yourself, making sure you get what you need, but also just doing the basic due diligence.
And that's one area where I have trouble because when someone reaches out, I want to help them as best as I can. But the past couple days, there's just no way I could. I had to focus on my own mental health. But we got a bunch of people calling. Yay! So let's get to our First caller, it looks like Leo, you were diagnosed with depression. You're on with Ethan and Jenna. How are you?
Hello, Leo.
Good. How are you guys doing?
Doing well, thank you.
Pretty good, actually.
Hello.
Awesome. So what did you want to talk about?
Yeah, I had a whole different thing, but on the depression thing, look, I was hard in depression for about 2 years after my mom passed away, and
Sorry to
I
hear
was
that.
really low. I had got off the medication one time, got back on, and I hit a very low point again. And anyway, it was my ex. I went over. My ex saw how I was doing. She called me over. I stayed at her house for a week with her and my kids. We went on runs, talked, and just some of the things she told me got me off the medication. I think it's some people who are going through depression, if you find the right motivation or the right thing to look forward to, you can get over it without the medication.
Maybe.
Okay.
Well, let's try not to make blanket statements, because it is possible to get over things without medication, and it also is not possible for people to get over things without medication. So it depends on the person. It depends on the situation. We definitely don't want to tell people to stop taking medications when we don't know their situation.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, that's very true. I apologize for that. Very true.
That's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I like for me, this is where I don't recommend this to anybody, but I do this myself. You should always talk to obviously a medical professional before you start making changes. But my health, because of epilepsy and depression, was in the toilet for so long, and the doctors I were going to were just not helping in the way that I needed. So I took my mental health into my own hands. I started looking into things, and that's when I started actually experimenting myself. And when I improved, and I changed my medications on my own. Again, I'm not recommending that for other people, but I am glad in my situation, because I wasn't getting the help I needed. I found a way to take my mental health into my own hands. And there are so many different ways to help improve that, like, working out, talking to people, even trying to educate yourself as much as possible, like learning about your conditions, in my opinion, can really make a difference in how you process, perceive, and deal with them.
Yes. When I was first going through the depression, I was putting myself down way too much. And I mean, yes, the medication, they did help. They did. Don't get me wrong. But at some point, I felt like I was taking a real bad turn. And I was just saying that it's just, you should always go to your professional, of course. But yeah, I took it into my own hands, because I started feeling myself more downer. And then the doctor started only wanting to talk every 2 months. So I was like, I have 60 days. So I started using those 60 days in my time and with the medication. But I don't get how it can make you more, how it can make you more down, I can have to watch out for that back shit,
Right.
Yeah. So I'm going to answer your question as best of my knowledge, but again, we are not mental health professionals. You really should be talking to a doctor about this, especially, but I understand that we are basically giving consent to vent by saying, call us, we listen. So we are welcoming people to talk about these things. I just want to be very, very clear that we are not giving any kind of expert medical or mental health advice.
Agreed.
I do want to say that from what I've learned from my own experience with antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications and trying this and trying that is, one, the reason that you want to stick with your doctor all the way through, even when you decide that it's not working for you and you want to get off of it, is because depending on how much you're taking and how often you're taking it and how long you've been taking it, if you stop taking an antidepressant, and I believe an anti-anxiety medication, I believe that those are in the same group, but I'm not sure about that. But if you take if you stop taking these medications too quickly, you can severely hurt yourself. You can go ahead.
No, finish. I'm just letting you know I could speak on that, but go ahead, finish what you were saying.
Well, but I was trying to make that point very clear, and then I was going to move on. Go ahead. So me,
Leo, when I was having epilepsy, I was on 3 different seizure medicines, antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds, ADHD medication, injections in my stomach. It was just like a never-ending compound of medications. And I did take my mental health into my own hands, which was one of the smartest decisions I ever made. But it did come with setbacks because I was at that time like of the opinion that my neurologist just sucked and wasn't helping me. I wasn't going to listen to her anymore, and I wasn't going to take her advice. So once the seizures stopped, despite, the doctor's wishes, I just started getting off all my medication. And I was just like, okay, I'm done with this. And I quit everything in a short period of time. Well, months later, that came back to haunt me because once everything had cleared my system, so I'm going to try and explain this as best as I can. I may be misinterpreting it because, again, I'm not a medical professional, but this is just how I understood it. But because I got off so many things at so many times, when that all left my system, my brain wasn't ready or balanced to deal with stress. So it set me like off the deep end. And I went into like crying fits of shaking and like crying and like, oh my God, I don't want to be here. Like it screwed me up. So that was probably an irresponsible decision as well on my part.
Yeah. So that's just.
My doctor.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go
Well,
ahead.
no, I was going to let you respond, and then we can move on to my next topic.
Oh no, it's yeah. I was just gonna point that my doctor did when I asked him if I could get off. They told me not to, but I was like, I guess they saw that I really wanted to. So they gave me a plan. They said cut down. So it took me about 3 weeks after. I didn't go cold turkey. I quit. Like it took me like 3 weeks of what they said cutting down, taking one day, next day yes, and then so I did a cut down program through the doctor telling me.
That's good.
And
if you don't,
I feel
if you flat out don't trust your doctor, you can get second, third, fourth, and fifth opinions. You can ask as many doctors and explain your situation and try to keep records on your own if you can too. I've tried this. I went up to this many milligrams, this frequency, and try to keep track on your own because sometimes the doctors, I don't know what that doctor's typing on that laptop of theirs. So if you can, I'd recommend keeping track of that. I'm sure there's plenty of apps out there to help with that. But get more opinions. If you don't trust your doctor, don't simply stop going. Find another doctor. But the next point that I wanted to make was you had asked a question. You said, why do some make you feel worse? And the thing is that I had started going on this deconversion journey that I went on and started learning about mental health. And a family member had learned about it and thought that they could be helpful because they found this book. And this book was called Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. I was like, that's interesting. Who's it by? Well, it's apparently by a psychologist. So I thought, hey, I'll check it out. I went and found like a sample of it. And it turns out that this book is basically trying to say that there's a way to get like a CAT scan of your brain and activate it in a certain way that certain parts light up. And there's like this magical medical cocktail that they can give you that is just going to alter your state of mind around perfectly the way that you want it to be. And then it's just a one and done kind of thing. I call bullshit. Mental health does not work that way. If somebody is down, well, there are very, very, very many ways to interpret down. There are different levels for different people, depending on the day, depending on the minute, depending on the year, depending on other things that are going on in their life, depending on things that may have gone in their life 50 years ago or whatever. It is so complicated. That's why it's important to pick a doctor that you trust and work with them consistently on getting your cocktail right. And it takes time. I'm just now getting my cocktail right. And then I got pregnant and now it's all off again. It's going to be off for who knows how long, but at least I found somebody who can work with me in a way that I trust. Because so Ethan and I have very similar personalities. We both seem to have ADHD and autism, possibly. So you could say, well, give them the same drug. It'll work for them both. Yeah, but you don't know that Ethan's also had epilepsy and I've got PTSD. It's like there's other things that add in to each person. And then you add there's just the variety of the billions of different kinds of people that there are. It's complicated. So you can't expect to just go to a doctor and get a drug and just feel better right away. Sometimes that does happen. That happened with my gabapentin when I started taking gabapentin. But I've heard from so many people that gabapentin just puts them straight to sleep. That doesn't mean that it, so do you see what I'm saying, Leo?
Yeah. Leo.
Yes, I see. My thing that got me away from my one of my first doctors was, I don't get it, but when they say, how does that compare? They say that medical marijuana is not good for depression. I've had two doctors tell me that and one doctor say that it's okay. What's your opinions on the?
So I'm going to push back on this pretty hard. But again, I'm not an expert, but I think in my experience, the people I've talked to and the research I've done, marijuana can make a huge impact on your mental health. Like there are times when my anxiety is crippling and I go smoke and all of a sudden I'm like, phew. But in addition, there are strains that are specifically meant for depression. And that's why, unfortunately, there's a lot of time doctors just don't, the medical community itself don't know enough about cannabis. They think
they push pharma.
They push pharmaceuticals, or they don't realize like how different every strain is. Like if you have, let's say you have digestive issues, there is a strain of marijuana specific to that. Let's say you have depression, there is a strain specific to that. If you need energy, there is a strain for that. Like it is a medicine with almost limitless capabilities, but like any other medication, you have to try and experiment to find what works for you. For those who don't know, one more thing is, like if you go to leafly.com, you can put in the strain and you will get the positive effects, the negative effects, and the medicinal effects. And that is the best way to find what strain may work best for you. For instance, sometimes.
Leafly?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Leo?
Oh no, I was just writing down that site that you said Leafly?
Yes, Leafley. It is a phenomenal resource for learning more about marijuana. Like when I was having my IBS issues, I found these thing called cronut capsules. It's a cronut strain, which is for all types of digestive inflammation. But the capsules include coconut oil, ginger, and turmeric. And, a lot of the studies behind marijuana are really awesome. And there's a lot of research out there that can help.
Okay. One, there are not a lot of studies on marijuana. There are things that there's just not enough research that has been done on marijuana.
Sorry. I agreed with Jenna. And a lot of that is because of the legalities. People, the medical community hasn't had time to do these tests and trials on them. We're only now starting to do it. So there is a lot we don't know. My main point is that it is an option, and I do recommend looking into it.
The thing is about the other thing is when you have people that are really like pushing vitamins for mental health recovery, right? Like the vitamin C packets and, all of this, like there's several like pharmaceutical type things that you can get at like the fancy, like central markets, right? Where there are like these vitamins that can boost your mental energy. From what I've learned about vitamins, and again, neither one of us are mental health professionals, and we really should change the topic back to what we want to talk about rather than giving advice on medicine.
And we do have a bunch of callers. So.
Yes, but I do want to say that when you give blanket statements about when you're finding marijuana blank, people in Texas, people where I am that are looking for marijuana are not going to find what you're talking about. They're going to find somebody who is growing it in their backyard, who sold it to somebody, who sold it to somebody, who sold it to somebody. There is no record of what you're getting if you're getting it in Texas, because it is still illegal. It is not, this is not regulated everywhere. And so depending on where you are, you may have access to regulated stuff like this that you're talking about. And if you're looking into using this medically, then yes, that's a good way to go about it. But if you're not where Ethan is and you're where I am, be very, very careful when somebody tells you, oh, well, this strain is this, because people don't necessarily know that here. Go ahead.
That's true. One thing I have noticed, and it is, if you're buying directly from somebody who grows, most of them, in my experience, are usually pretty knowledgeable and will be transparent about what they're growing or tell you what strain it is. However, as Jenna said, it's not regulated. So, of course, you don't 100% know. Where Illinois has the strictest and stringiest marijuana growing guidelines in the country.
Right. But that's one state.
Awesome. But that's, one state where it's...
And we're broadcasting across the world.
Right.
So we have to be very careful when we make blanket statements like that about when you're looking for marijuana, that there are strains for this or whatever, because that's not necessarily the case everywhere. And even if... So you're saying that in Illinois, it is FDA regulated?
Oh, sorry. No, it's not FDA regulated, but Illinois has the regulations in place which keep it of the up, like I believe it's B grade, which is the highest, best standards for cleanliness rules, the way you have to create everything. It's like Illinois weed is really good. However, I did recently learn, which I still have to look more into, just to confirm, is that while the vape cartridges are the absolute best quality, and you cannot get them better and safer anywhere else in the country. The marijuana doesn't have ideal growing conditions in Illinois. So there are other states that have better weed because the growing conditions are more ideal. And that's why we really need to get this federally legal, because then states can purchase marijuana from other states, and then we get great mixes, we get more options available like this. And I recently learned that apparently veterans will lose their benefits if they get a medical marijuana card. And that's because it's federally illegal.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, but if you think about how regulated wine is, right? Wine is extremely regulated. And the thing is that it's very nuanced. When you say the best wine comes from France, well, what does that mean? When you say, you know what I mean? So when you get wine from France and you get wine from, South America, you're going to get very different kinds of wine. And the regulations that say that it's good wine are going to be very different. Even country to country in Europe, there are different regulations. So when you say the regulations say that this is the best weed, that's very nuanced.
Yes. And I'd also like to say earlier, I did say, which when I said that oftentimes medical professionals don't know enough about marijuana, I am not saying that I am a medical professional and I know more. The reason I said that was there is not a lot, they don't learn this in medical school. They're not being taught about marijuana.
We don't know what they're being taught. They could be being taught that this is absolutely harmful, and I don't know what they're being taught.
Right, but there is no current formal marijuana education from my understanding. And that's why I was making that, I guess, assertion that they don't always know the best. But
we're still in the beginning steps of this marijuana thing.
Yes.
So
Yes.
like eventually all that, like California, like they're so regulated. Yet, like from what I hear, you have to be able to prove from where it was grown, the seed, all the way to the store. That's why now it's sold in bags, and now you can't just pick it. It's like California is very well regulated from what I'm assuming. You know.
That's good.
I was just called out.
Go ahead.
I just got called out. I did apparently misspeak. I guess this has since changed. Veterans, according to this article on militarybenefits.info, veterans will not lose VA benefits for discussing medical marijuana with their providers. So I was incorrect. I apologize.
Thank you.
We do have to wrap up this call, Leo. Is there anything you wanted to have the last word on real quick?
And hopefully, can it try to be about emotional consent or venting rather than drugs.
Okay, no, I just want to say I appreciate you guys for the show, for letting me on talk. I love how you think, you go to like the extra deeper layer to think. I love the way you think. Ethan, I appreciate the time, man.
No, thank you so much.
Yeah.
It was nice talking to you, Leo.
Yeah, thank you for calling.
All right, I'll see you guys on the next one.
All right.
Good luck with your drug cocktail journey.
I am in the process of trying to find a medical marijuana expert because I want to do a show on that. But we do have several callers, so let's just jump right into the next one. We have
That was
got.
a good call, though.
It was
really good points.
So Leo originally wanted to talk about like the vaccines,
Right.
and then once he had the topic, switched it over, and it's a really good call. I enjoyed it.
Yay.
Okay, next caller is going to be Tobin from Texas. How are you, Tobin?
Hello.
Not too bad. Hello, Jenna. Hello, Ethan.
Hey, how are you? What's going on today?
Well, I have started kind of interacting with somebody, and they say racist things, and I don't know how to like I think if I continue arguing with the person, I might actually get heated. But then again, I know that the discussion is important, and I shouldn't shy away from it.
Do you have HR?
Feelings arguing with somebody, huh?
Do you have HR at your job?
Well, I don't.
No.
He didn't. He just said online.
I think said at work.
No. Wait, sorry, Tobin. Did you say online or at work?
No, it's online.
Okay.
Oh, okay. That's much okay. That's
so
easier to deal with.
We do have to, Tobin. We will have to kind of keep this very brief, only because we do want to stay focused on the topic of mental health. But dealing with racism online can be very tricky, and at times can be emotionally taxing and very difficult to deal with. I find the best method for dealing with extreme views online is street epistemology. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, Anthony Magnabosco. Yeah. Lines of questioning. Yeah.
That for me has, in dealing with people with these extreme views, has made a huge difference in the way they engage with me. Because when I used to engage in like, well, you're wrong, this, or just calling them out, they oftentimes will jump to, oh, you're just a triggered liberal, you just want to call everyone racist. But when I switch to, well, hey, why do you think it's like this? You know, what about this specifically is bothering you? And I just continue to pry with questions. They, find me to be more open-minded, and therefore are willing to engage with me because I'm not immediately putting them in this closed box and telling them, you know, what they are. I actively try to avoid calling people like can't remember the last time I called somebody racist or transphobic. I try and avoid those because while the person could be racist or could be transphobic, it doesn't help me achieve my end goal, which is changing people's minds. And once you label someone one of those names, in most cases, they're just done listening to you. So the best advice I could give would be to continue to ask as many questions as possible.
Yes. And that's if you can continue engaging, because you've said so yourself already that you might get heated here pretty soon. So it sounds like you've been dealing with this person already. Is this person being, if you don't mind my asking, are they being racist towards you, or are they making side comments here and there that are getting under your skin?
Good question.
I basically have interacted with them online by doing like a streaming thing. And then they here recently they have shown up in the chat rooms.
And they,
but see, that's why I think this has to deal with mental health, because I don't want to get hot. I don't want to make it heated, but I don't know how to not do that, because
okay,
they argue, they are not honest with their arguments.
so it sounds to me, and I thank you so much for bringing this up, because this is such a familiar struggle of mine. Trying not to get heated when talking to somebody about something that is offending me emotionally. The thing is, you can't stop yourself from getting heated. If you're getting heated, that is the moment where you are losing, maybe you haven't lost it, but you are losing control of your rational thinking mind, right? You acknowledge that you feel like you're about to lose that control, right? So you're losing that. And that is the point where you're going to say something out of an emotional response to them. And that can start a fight. That's definitely not going to change their mind. So I would say that if you're getting that emotional response, remove yourself somehow, or remove them. If it's on some kind of chat stream, I hope that you can mute them or block them or remove them in some way. Have maybe get a moderator or somebody to help you to keep this person away from you until you can calm down. And if you want to invite them back, then you can do that. But I would say that my first instinct is boundaries until you can find a way to manage, to better manage them. For example, I mean, it kind of depends on that. That's the other thing, is that in order to explain how I would manage them and if I would manage them right away or not, it really depends on what they're doing. Like, are they coming onto your stream and just blatantly shouting racist, comments? Because that's the point where they're not willing to have a conversation. There is no need to have them there. Remove them completely. I would, at least right away. But if they're saying things that it's nuanced and you can tell that there's some racism behind what they're saying, sometimes people don't intend for that. Not even they don't intend for it to come off like that, but sometimes people don't even intend to look at things that way. And so sometimes it takes asking questions about how they came to that conclusion that really, really helps them discover the flaws in what they think. But by putting people in a box that are simply confused and calling them racist, sometimes makes them retreat to an echo chamber full of people who happen to be racist, and then they become racist.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I hope.
Yeah, see, that's exactly why I'm asking about it, because I don't want to make the situation worse.
One other thing I've noticed, and I mean, like, if it's something I'm really comfortable with handling, I'll kind of engage with them more. But with racial issues, I always want to be careful, because I don't want to put out more bad information or misrepresent the community in any fashion. So there are times I will be like, hey, I have someone that I think you should talk to about this, and I'll see if I can loop them into a group chat. one of the things that's actually worked out best for me is pointing people to my call-in show, because I've seen, on Facebook, when you're not looking at someone and you're not hearing their voice, you're way more likely to snap on them and be less patient. And I have seen some conversations where this guy is just insulting me, and I'm just like, look, can we just talk on the phone on my show? Next thing I know, he's calling my show. We're having a super civil conversation. So I think Facebook or engaging over social media can oftentimes cause more problems. There are people, and I'm not recommending this for everyone, but where I've been like, hey, could I just send you a direct message? Because when you're engaging on a status, now these people are factoring in how they look to other people. So more psychological barriers are being put up, because after all, they don't want to look stupid in front of somebody else. They don't want to be called names. But when you do it privately, you remove the spectator aspect, and it helps bring their defenses down.
It can.
It can, yes.
So that was a little off topic, but hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah, I hope anything else you want to close with before we move to the next caller?
Y'all are making me feel better about things. Thank you, Ethan. Thank you, Jenna. I love what y'all do. Y'all are excellent people.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you for calling. And good luck with this person. Hopefully you can get through to them. And if not, hopefully you can take care of yourself.
And if you do, if you want help as well, I do have a call-in show every Tuesday, and we would be more than happy.
That's a good idea.
Those calls. Maybe just give me a heads up so I can make sure, because sometimes, if there's a caller I don't think I can handle, I'll look for someone that can come on to handle that caller, because I want to make sure I handle these as responsible as possible. So feel free to, defer them to one of my Tuesday night show if you're interested.
Thanks,
that
Tobin.
sounds like a really good idea.
Awesome.
Hopefully we can help. Thanks again, Tobin.
Likewise.
All right. You have enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the show. This is really good. I'm so glad. I would like to thank Secular Rarity for jumping in his call screener at the last second, because it's very helpful with the calls we have on hold.
We would have missed all of these callers.
Yeah, Secular Rarity is I don't want to say he's new to the community, but newer to me, I guess, and pretty awesome dude. He's going to be on Ask an Atheist in just a couple of weeks, which is a new weekly show I started. Which, Jenna, I got to get you a few dates, because I need you on Ask an Atheist as well.
Yay! I would love to. And little middle of the show disclaimer here thing. We are. Do you want to talk about the new partnership that we're doing with GCRR, about their virtual e-conference that they're having, or do we want to save that for the end?
We'll save it for the end. Stick around. We have some exciting news.
Okay.
We do want to try and get through all these callers, so let's get to our next one. We've got Bob from Texas. Major health issues, and when people ask how are you, they don't really want to hear the full story. Bob, how you doing?
Do you really want to know?
Well, yeah.
That's what we're here for.
That's the whole premise of what I want to talk about. Sometimes people will ask how you doing. They really don't want to hear how I'm doing if it's not good. Okay. So what I advise, and just a piece of advice, is that if you really don't want to know how somebody's doing, just say, hey, I hope you're having a good day.
Yes. Okay.
And then that you dismiss having to listen to their well-embellished story of how sick they are or what's going on. It's just, hey man, I hope you're having a good day. And I know when I've told people that, because they'd ask how I was doing, and I'd say, you really want to know? Yeah. And I'd start, and then I could hear them sigh, and it's like, look, we're going to stop this right now. Next time, just say, I hope you're having a good day. That makes me feel better than having to tell and relive how awful I'm feeling because of the chemo or this, that, and the other. So even if I'm not having a great day, I'll say, well, I've had better days, but it's okay. And just because what you said makes me feel better, you know, and then boom, that conversation is over and we move on to the next topic. You know,
I
so
love
that's
this, Bob. I agree. I actually learned this from working in the bar because, you know, when I would DJ, oftentimes people would come up and talk to me and it was, hey, how you doing? And as much as I do want to know and want to help people, when I'm DJing, I can't like hear a long story. Like I have to be working. So I started adjusting my statement to say, hey, good to see you. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah.
And I agree. I think that is a great practice to put in place.
I think that a good way to do that is to start. Go ahead.
Y'all were on another topic about psychotropic medications, all right? And you talked about a book. Now, this is a change of topic. Years ago, I was diagnosed as being clinically depressed,
Okay.
and they put me on a cocktail of psychotropic drugs, antidepressants. You know, it's like every month they're shaking this stuff up, going, well, try this. And people around me were saying, dude, this stuff's weirding you out worse than you already are. I mean, hey, I'm weird and I'm okay with that, but this is making you worse. And so I detoxed off that. And this is just my personal experience. I went to a psychologist and learned how to deal with the certain things that triggered me, whether it was the anxiety, how to see it coming, how to deal with the depression, how to look at, am I setting myself up for failure, which is going to make me depressed? And so I retrained my brain, you know, because it was so easy for me to like hit the reset button in a way. Well, not reset, but like my brain would, I guess, revert back to that little boy, you know. I quit letting that little boy run my life, you know.
Okay.
You know, run home to close the door and hide under the covers and cry. Quit doing that. Learn how to deal with the situation. And that worked for me. So I don't take any psychotropic drugs of any kind. I don't drink.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Did you ever learn how to cry?
Sure.
But did you though?
Say that again.
What do you mean by sure?
Yeah, I know how to cry.
Like, but do you cry? Did you learn how to?
Yeah.
Like not.
Yes.
Okay, because it just sounds to me like you're saying that you've taught yourself not to, and I just wanted to clarify and get that straight and try to understand where you're coming from and be correct about it.
No, there's a certain time to, and everybody's level of crying is different. I mean, did somebody break down on the floor and start, you know, just wallowing in the tears, or you know, do you know, to make a scene for everybody? Or does somebody take, you know, a day or a few moments to, you know, feel the sorrow, feel the pain? And that's part of it. Emotions happen with every breath. With everything I see, it triggers an emotion. And for me, I feel that emotion, I let it wash over me, and I move on to the next one. I don't hold on to them.
So that is an important tool, and I'm glad that you learned that. But just for people who are watching, if you are that person that is making the scene, crying, screaming, flailing with your hands going everywhere on the floor, if that is you, that doesn't mean that's who you are, or that's the kind of crier you are. That means that you have been pushed to that limit. It's on the scale, again, not coming from a mental health professional, a mental health connoisseur. If you are able to do that, where what you're describing, where you process the emotion and you handle it, that's the goal. But if you're somebody who is at the point where you have to have a panic attack in the middle of Walmart then that means that you have some practicing to do. You have some learning, you have some changes to make to allow yourself to relieve those emotions from your body before you get to that point, because your body is going to get rid of the stress in some way. It's up to you to just to determine how and when.
Yeah, this process did not happen overnight with me. It took years.
Yeah.
It took years, to different situations. Like, well, different situations come up, and which make me feel different emotions. Like, man, I hadn't felt that emotion in a while. I gotta learn that one. Learn how to deal with that one. So it's an interesting process of, I guess you would say, self-development, self-reinventing, just learning about myself.
Yeah.
I can't advise other people what to do. I know what works for me, and what works for me does not always work for somebody else.
Right.
But I do see a lot of, it's interesting, a lot of, well, nothing, I won't even say that. So anyway, so the last time I spoke with you all, I had been working, right? I was always at work.
Well, did you have anything else on the topic of emotional consent? Because we really we have 2 more callers that we'd really like to get to, but we really want to take care of you too.
Yeah. One more thing. I got fired because I took my service animal to work, and which is
legal?
But you know what? Yeah, but I didn't let that emotionally distress me. I just moved along. And sometimes that's what you got to do, is just like, okay, just move along. I can't change anybody but myself. I can't change the world until I change myself.
Well, there are things that you can do. You can report them.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sure. Where are you calling from? Texas? Texas has a Texas Workforce Commission, or it's either that organization or there. I know that there's, in every restaurant I've ever worked in, there is a big poster explaining your rights as a worker in Texas, and you can call them and you can tell them what happened. And so maybe you can't do more than that. Maybe they don't want to continue with the process, but there's usually something that you can do. Yes, it's maybe better for your mental health to just drop it and move on. But for some people, you could be preventing other people from being able to work there with a service animal because nobody's ever been told that this organization isn't allowing it.
Well, it's very simple. Texas is an at-will state. Even though they told me, hey, we're going to let you go because you're bringing your service animal to work, they don't have to tell that to the state. And I didn't support that conversation. So they
have to have documentation of some kind of mistakes that you've made if they don't want to use that excuse.
Yeah. So it is what it is, and that's what I with the service animals. Sometimes we're rejected a lot in the community I live in, and I just move along. And people go, "Man, you ought to sue them." I say, well, what is that going to do? I'm going to waste more energy and time dealing with these knuckleheads instead of just going down the street to the next restaurant or the next gas station.
That's true. If you can turn that into a positive and just support the people who are allowing it, then that's another thing that you can do.
Yeah. Well, what I try to do is educate them before I leave. Like, okay, you know what? I'm going to leave under protest, but here's the regulations. I'll send your boss the regulations, and it might help the next person. But I don't have the time and energy to waste on that stuff,
And that's understandable.
I can't cure your ignorance. So I'll see you later. So anyway, look, thanks a lot. I'll keep listening. Y'all have a great day.
You too.
And for those who think that atheists don't participate in Christian holidays, if you're in Texas, in the South, try to go shopping at H-E-B today. Okay? You're participating. Have a good day.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
I really liked that how are you topic, because that has been something I've thought about for a long time, and how at times, and I know people don't intend it that way, but because how are you has become such like it's like just a norm that like people don't actually care when they say it. And I think that we should be more cognizant of when we are saying, how are you?
Well, when you think about how many people work in service industry and they have to put on a service industry voice, they have to present that they want to hear your life story without actually having the time to hear your life story. So there's kind of a trick to having this kind of a response to people you don't know, right? Because when I meet somebody at a store, hi, how are you? I put on that customer service face. I am trying to be more mindful, and by doing so, get myself out of the habit of doing that. Hashtag, like I put in there, denormalize, hi, how are you? But I had a point, but it's gone. Sorry.
Well, let's get to our next caller. We do have filled, at this point, we do have filled lines. We won't be able to take any more calls, but we are going to get through what we have. So, am I pronounced this correctly? Is it Martin, or is it pronounced differently than that?
Well, you can call me Martin. I'm okay with that. It's the usual way I'm called in by people speaking English.
If I may, what's the correct way to say your name?
Martijn.
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 Did I say
like that?
Dutch, so yeah.
Okay, Martijn. What did you want to talk about?
Yes. Well, I heard you talk before about autism, and I am diagnosed with autism. And so when people want to vent, then I find it rather difficult to respond properly. Sometimes I want to help,
right?
But it's rather difficult to. They probably just want to speak and to tell what they are going through. But I always have the feeling that I have to do something to fix things. And it's also difficult to.
Do you want to know what people have done to me? Actually, specifically, Eric Murphy and Vila Bianca, what they do that has taught me a new way of responding to people that way. That doesn't make them feel like they have to do something. Is when I call them and I'm complaining to them and I'm crying or I'm upset or whatever, and then I'm the kind of person to be like, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I don't want you to ruin your day, I don't want to put my problems on you. And the response is always, oh, you're not putting your problems on me, I'm just here with you. And so accepting that you don't have to do anything and you don't have to expect anything from somebody who does agree to allow you to vent can remove so much stress from both sides, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, that's a good. There are ways to cope with that, with the feeling that you have to do something, and yeah.
So do you tell yourself that? Like, how is your self-talk when that happens to you? What does the conversation look like that goes on in your head?
Well, the part of it is that one of the things that are going through my head at that moment is how long is this gonna take? And it's a bit silly, but there are things that are just beforehand. You don't know how long they want to,
right?
How long they need to talk, to say something, and when things are not clear to me, that's always a bit difficult to handle.
That's something I struggle with too. Actually. Is somebody's going and going and going and going, and you're like, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if that's a rude thing to ask. Like maybe if you could approach it, and this is again pure thoughts out loud even. I wouldn't even call this advice, but I'm wondering what would happen if you just kind of say to this person that, did the person that's making you feel that way, did they ask you for your consent to emotionally dump on you?
Well,
Probably not.
Necessarily. Not sometimes maybe. Sometimes it's just something that comes up.
Well, because that's kind of the point of what we're talking about is the fact that that's not exactly a normal thing for people to say, "Hey, I'm having a bad day. Do you have the emotional capacity to handle my venting to you, or can you handle my problems right now? Can I dump something on you because I really need to get this out?" That's not a very normal thing to say or to hear. And so that's kind of one of the things that we're trying to introduce, is the idea that might help people like you and me who struggle sometimes with balancing being rude and taking care of myself.
It can really be difficult. Sorry, please go ahead.
Yeah. What I was thinking is, it is not just with random other people, but it's also with my partner, for instance. I always I had to learn to adjust properly, to listen, and she knows, of course, well, at least a few years now, that I'm diagnosed, and that influences just the way we communicate, but it also influences the support I can give.
Good. That's awesome.
Other than that, how are you holding up? And I do mean that.
Yeah.
How I from day to day, you mean?
Right now. How are you right in this moment, right now?
Oh, quite anxious, because calling shows like this is not my thing. I'm not used to.
Well, hopefully you can call us more often, and that, because practice makes perfect, right?
Yeah. And
yeah, maybe I should. Yeah,
I hope
it's the previous call about that, asking how are you doing. In which we have similar ways to talk with people we just meet, or when we meet a colleague or something, and it always felt like I had to lie if things are not really okay at the moment, and I don't want to tell them what's going on.
Yeah. And to be honest, maybe you don't have to lie. You don't have to say that you're okay when you're not. You could say, what was it? I think it was IQ who said it earlier. I'm not, oh, darn it. Where was it? About, I don't want to, I could complain, but I won't. Realizing that not everybody has the time, not everybody has the emotional capacity to handle your stuff right now. And so I could complain, being honest, I've got some stuff going on, but I realize that that's not appropriate for the situation or whatever. And so I'm just going to keep it to myself. But thank you for asking. Thank you for extending some kind of expression that you care. We could change our language if we can be more mindful and talk about things like this. Because if you've never thought about this kind of thing before, how are you going to come up with a response like that just on the fly?
Yeah, indeed.
So thank you so much for calling, Martin. I don't want to say your name wrong.
Martin.
Thank
you. Just call me Martin. That's okay.
Martin.
Well, I've seen you, I've seen you chatting in like the comments, I think on some Facebook groups or on YouTube before. So it was nice finally getting to talk to you.
Yeah,
indeed. And about diagnosing, when you expect, maybe if you, I already talked before, it was at the last show, that you were talking about that you expect yourself maybe on the spectrum. And it's really a good thing just to get diagnosed, just to be sure.
I agree. Like I've like I do want to continue down this path, but it has, because for most of my life I've been told I'm weird, I'm different, and at times some of my weird things I've gotten poked fun at for, like not liking change, like, or people just like have wanted to screw with me in a way because they find it funny. And it's like, you know what? There is something going on up there that clearly I'm not like, I don't know if I should say not normal. Well, I don't know. I want to be careful with how I word that. But my point is, I don't know what my point is. It's been helpful. I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely want to try to get diagnosed as well. But I'm kind of at the point where I don't exactly have the financial means, and I'm about to have a kid, so I don't exactly have a whole lot of extra time coming up. But it is important to me. But I'm kind of at the point where I kind of accept that I am different. Whatever it is, I'm different. I am weird, and I have come to accept that to the extreme. But you are right. It is definitely helpful because it normalizes it. It can help people with research. It can help with statistics, as all of that. So we have another caller.
Oh, thank you. Awesome. Thanks, Martin. It was nice talking to you.
Thank you, Martin.
Yeah. Okay. Have a good evening.
You too.
For you.
We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Let's get to our last caller. Allison, you are on with Ethan and Jenna. How's it going?
Allison, hey.
Hey. Hi, it's going okay. How are you doing?
We are ready to listen.
So what do you want to talk about?
Yay. Okay, so I love this topic because it's just something that I didn't really realize that I was like dumping traumatic stuff on people. Like I know I've called in to and talked to you both about some pretty traumatic stuff. And I, didn't like take into account how either of you would react to it or how you feel about it, or if you'd actually even get triggered. And like that's something that I've been doing with a lot of people. And recently it was brought to my attention that some conversations that I had on Discord with some other friends revealing a bunch of trauma and talking about really, really serious topics, someone brought to my attention that those conversations left those people like really, really shook up. Like, I don't want to say it. I hope that I didn't accidentally traumatize them, but there's always a chance. And it's like, I had no idea until somebody actually brought it to my attention and said, hey, these people were like really, really affected by what you said. So please don't bring up those topics in chat anymore. And I was like, okay, yeah. And I apologized to one person who I definitely know that I like went way overboard, and she like froze and she didn't know what to say. So I apologized to her. And I want to apologize to both of you as well for disclosing some pretty traumatic stuff. And like, I hope that I didn't hurt you in any way. And I'm very sorry that I did hurt you.
You are such a sweet person to think about that and to go back and actually evaluate your actions and consider how they might have hurt other people. And you're very accurate, and that is a possibility. I want to be very clear that we have the words "Call us, we listen" as like our slogan. If we are not mentally prepared to be here, I mean, I have a couple of people that I know I could ask to fill in for me if I really couldn't handle this show. So we almost disclaimer, we want you to call us.
Yeah, we're here to listen. And we invite it into our lives or on our show. The only thing I try to be cognizant of is, trigger warnings. If you're sharing a story that could be triggering to some, particularly because we have people watching, say, hey, trigger warning, I'm going to be talking about abuse, or try and let people know, so for those watching, they can step away until the next call if necessary. But no, you have not in any way triggered me. You've always been very polite and sweet. And, again, we invite these calls, so I've never been caught off guard or not prepared to deal with it. So thank you.
Yes, and if apparently there are things that you can do if you want to be able to handle somebody emotionally venting without hurting them more, because that's another thing, is that the person that you're venting to could hurt you more with their response.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing. Like, I've had reactions where they just don't know how to respond, and like they're either triggered or they just shut down, or they're like, why the hell are you telling me this? I'm, or I'm not a therapist, or whatever. And then I not thinking about them. It's like, oh my God, you don't care. You don't want to listen. You don't understand. And oh, by the way, this doesn't actually have anything to do with anything that you said or did, but I'm still like triggered and in all this emotional disarray and just and a lot of people are like, oh my God, I don't know how to deal with that. And it's just, like I said before, like, it never really occurred to me. And like, I've also taken this kind of thing in DBT as well recently, where it's like when you're in a relationship with someone that you constantly like vent to and confide in, or end up getting triggered and just like dumping all of this trauma on the person who just happens to be there around you at the time when you're triggered and going through this emotional dump. And like, it's really hard for them because they're like, whoa, like, what do you want me to do here? And like, most of the time I'm just like, yeah, I just need someone to like listen. And like, sometimes, like, I don't know if you remember, but at one point I called in and I said that I was tired of like my woes being like falling on deaf ears. I don't know what to call that, but it's like now I'm realizing, I'm like, was it actually like deaf ears? Like they didn't care, or they just
probably couldn't handle
the content of the conversation and like the trauma, right?
Right. Yeah, and that's why you want to make sure that you ask somebody before you unload on them, because you could hurt yourself more because they're not prepared and they respond in a way that hurts you. You could hurt them by traumatizing them and causing them to, have to defend themselves and protect themselves, and in the process hurting you. You could also kind of cause them to shut down because some people just don't have the time, and they stress while they're trying to listen and be compassionate with you about gauging how much of your stuff they need to listen to make you feel better enough to not make them feel worse. So there's just all these things, all these emotions, and especially, so it's just emotional consent is just a really good concept just to start promoting. And I shared in the chat, I've shared 3 links. The first one was just in Texas. I have found the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services have provided a trauma-informed care training. I think that's awesome. The friend that I mentioned that caused me to think about this, and then I told them what happened in my head and what I'd realized. They work in a police station and deal with trauma victims. So they deal with domestic violence, and that's something that they said I said, oh, actually, that we had a training about making sure that when you come to work and you're exposed to trauma, and then trauma doesn't just sit idle. You have to it's like a hot potato, right? You kind of like pass it somewhere. And so if you pass it to the wrong person, you have to be responsible and realizing what you could be doing to another person. So if you want to be one of those people, it might not be a bad idea to go and get some kind of training on how to deal with responding to trauma. And one of those resources is through Recovering from Religion. They have a really good training program that utilizes a lot of street epistemology, which I think is just the best approach to like so many things. But that's a really good way to also kind of prepare yourself on how to keep yourself separate from the trauma that you're trying to handle, or from not unloading too much trauma on somebody that can't handle it.
Right.
But then the second two, just really quick, I'm so sorry that I'm just rambling. I just feel like this is really important stuff. Second two, the other are from the same website. There, it's some nonprofit that I haven't really looked into, but from what I read, it seems really, really on point. It has some ideas for how to get emotional consent, and if you can't get it, then the other link that I've shared is some basic self-care steps that you can take, because if you can't unload that somewhere and you don't want to be disrespectful and you don't want to hurt anybody else, there are steps that you can take to take care of yourself and relieve that stress without hurting anyone else. Mm-hmm. So those are the links that I've shared in the chat that I recommend checking out. Sorry.
Awesome. Allison, I real quickly, if there's anything you want to wrap up with,
yeah, I thought of something and now I can't think of it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Just oh yeah, it's like I'm in DBT, so I'm learning skills on how to like when I do get triggered, it's not like, oh, you feel a few feelings and then it like snap the fingers, they're gone, they go away. It's like a tidal wave. And it's like that tidal wave just doesn't drop. It's like you have to ride that wave of emotions out. And those waves can last for days. They can last for months.
Right.
Or like, and so just realizing that has helped a lot as well with just dealing with it, because it's like you got to ride it out and then you got to recover from it, and then your body has to recover from it, because it takes a lot of energy out of you when you're dealing with this stuff,
right.
Like especially with stress and emotions and stuff. Like I've slept for like 12 hours,
mm-hmm.
like it's nothing.
You can start to learn how to read the waves. Right? Like you can start to learn how to read the signs that some kind of wave is coming, right?
Mm-hmm.
Allison, I want to thank you. Sorry to cut you short, but we are out of time. Okay. I want to thank you so much for calling in today, and thank you to all of our callers. It was nice talking to you, Allison.
Thank you, Allison. It was good talking to you.
Very welcome. Have a good day.
You too.
Thanks. You too. Hopefully I didn't. I feel like I talked too much. Like we really want to be a show where we listen to people a lot of the time. I just felt like that there was just a couple pieces of information that I just really felt were really important to share. So I apologize if I've been talking too much.
No, you're fine. All right, Jenna, what do you have going on this week?
The usual, and I'm going to be on the East Experience today for Easter Sunday, so check that out. But Genesis every morning meditating on Twitch at 10 a.m. Central, Monday through Friday. Then I've got Atheist Stasis being premiered on YouTube at 4 p.m. Every Wednesday. And I have Carrot Noises where I'm streaming live painting at 4:30 p.m. every Thursday on Twitch as well. And then I've actually also been uploading some Carrot Noises and Genesis clips to YouTube and kind of like a vault. So there's a whole nother section if people want to go and look at the history of Carrot Noises and Genesis. That is all up too.
Awesome. Well, as you know, every Tuesday I host the call-in show. They're called The Perspective. This Tuesday, Eric Murphy will be on. It's from 7 to 9 p.m. Central. We tackle supernatural, paranormal claims, belief in aliens, conspiracy theories, and more. And then every Sunday I'm here with Jenna, and every Thursday I'm with Hannah Vaughn on the pickup line. Jenna, it was a good show.
I agree. I think this is a really helpful show to normalize consent to vent or emotional consent, however you want to word it.
Hell yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone. Make sure you like and subscribe. And also thank you to our patrons, Kenneth, Leonard, Expresso Cat, Doanya, and Kaitlyn Beyond. We appreciate your patronage, and I hope everyone has a safe and wonderful week.
Thank you.